Good afternoon and welcome back to All For United. This is the Pride of All Europe podcast. Today I'm joined by Tom. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well. It's obviously lunchtime for you guys, but it's Saturday night, 9 o'clock at night here. But Sydney's in lockdown, so it's worked out quite well, I think.
Absolutely, mate. Listen, thank you for joining us, mate. I absolutely appreciate it. You know, dedicated red there for you from Sydney. And Charlie, how are you, mate?
All good, mate. How are you doing?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Just before we get into everything today, I just wanted to get Tom's thoughts on the Jadon Sancho deal. Obviously, we've agreed a deal in principle with Borussia Dortmund for Jadon Sancho. And I also want to get his opinion on Tom Heaton coming back to Old Trafford and the fact that Juan Mata and Lee Grant, which surprised me the most, Lee Grant, deciding new deals for Manchester United, new one-year deals. Tom, what do you make of them? So those sort of deals that we've just spoken about there, mate. What do you make of them, really? Jadon Sancho, obviously, everyone's going to be over the moon and everything, but I just wanted to get your reaction on the other three, which obviously Tom Heaton has been around. That sort of rumour's been around for ages, and announced a done deal. But Lee Grant and Juan Mata contract extension seem to be split in opinions. So what's your opinion on all those topics, mate?
Yeah, well, it was a busy day at Old Trafford. You don't usually get that during the transfer window, everything to happen on the one day or 1 or 2 days. But the Jadon Sancho one, I'd be the same opinion as 99% of the fan base. Very happy with it. Glad it's over. It did drag out for far too long, but ultimately we've got a hell of a player. Done and dusted. Hopefully he's sort of wrapped in cotton wool for England and doesn't get injured and he can have a bit of a break and come back and have a full pre-season. On the two goalkeeping contracts, the arrival of Heaton and the extension of Lee Grant, I think in isolation, they're fine. You can understand each signing. The issue then becomes, though, with the other two goalkeepers in Dean Henderson and David De Gea, what does it mean for them? And look, we could have an hour-long discussion for that and still get nowhere. So the two signings for the goalkeepers, no issue with. It's just with the other two goalkeepers, it just doesn't make any sense. Whether we get an answer and some clarification around that, I'm not sure. I'm assuming time will tell, and I'm sure there'll be a few rumours popping up, especially around the future of David De Gea. And on the last one, Juan Mata, look, anyone who knows me, there's no secret. I'm a big fan of Juan Mata, and I completely agree with the extension. A lot of people disagree with it, and I understand their opinion. But I can just see with young players in a squad like we have, like Mason Greenwood coming through, like Shoatire, like Hannibal, even like Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford, young players, I can't think of another sort of role model to have in and around the club than Juan Mata. So while I understand the frustration, sort of the business side of keeping him on, I'm very for the news. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Just thought I'd get your opinion because there's been mixed reactions. Yesterday, Charlie touched upon that since we've given Juan Mata a new contract, let's make sure we play him a little bit more, especially in games where we don't have to play Bruno Fernandes, we can rest him. Like Charlie said, in second leg of European competitions, for example, when we're already 2 or 3-0 up. Charlie, on the Lee Grant thing, because that broke sort of after we spoke on air yesterday, what do you make of that? Because that one, even more than Juan Mata's contract extension, is baffled people because of the amount of goalkeepers we have. We have like five goalkeepers now, senior goalkeepers on the books, as well as all the younger goalkeepers in the under 23s, under 18s, etc., etc. What do you make of that? Do you find it a bit strange, or can you understand why United have extended this contract?
Well, as Tom rightly said, I think the Lee Grant, I don't think anyone's really particularly that bothered about Lee Grant. I think it's the impact it's going to have on everything else. I cannot see De Gea, Henderson, Heaton and Lee Grant all being here at the start of the season. I don't think we're going to have all four of those keepers at the club. So I think it could spell the end probably for whether it's going to be a loan deal for Dean Henderson or whether a sale of David De Gea. I'm not so sure. But yeah, Lee Grant, he's probably not going to ever play a game unless obviously we have an injury crisis or obviously a COVID crisis or anything like that where we have to bring Lee Grant in. But I very much doubt he's going to play a game. He's just there for a sort of, it could be a third backup really, couldn't it? But I expect it to be, I think it'll be Henderson, Heaton and Grant. So I think De Gea may go. I'm not sure who's going to pay the money for him at the moment. He's not even playing for Spain ahead of what I would say an average to decent goalie in Simon. So yeah, it's a strange one with Grant. I think that sort of tells you that one of Henderson or De Gea won't be here. But I just don't. I think we discussed this yesterday, but I don't like it when you don't. I don't like it when there's uncertainty over who's the number one. I've been talking about this for a while. The spine of the team. We don't know at the moment. Man United. We don't know who's going to start in goal. We don't know who the number one is. Realistically, I think it'll be Dean Henderson. I think Ollie prefers Dean Henderson, but we don't fully know. And then we don't know who's going to partner Maguire next season. And we also don't know who the CDM is going to be. So the spine of the team, we've only got Maguire at the moment, who we fully 100% know, unless he gets injured, of course. Maguire will start more or less every league game. So the spine of our team is, not there at the moment. It's a big worry. And it needs to be sorted out sooner rather than later. Going into pre-season, obviously Henderson's injured. De Gea, I think, is injured as well, apparently. Got a little bit of an injury. So we could be going into pre-season with Heaton as the goal, as the keeper. And then if we don't get a centre-back in before pre-season starts, we're going to be maybe starting with Lindelof. But obviously, he's had his injury worries. So we need to sort this out sooner rather than later. If the spine of the team is the spine of the team. If you look at the teams that win titles, that is the part of the team that you cannot keep tossing and changing around. You have to keep that consistent. And if you look, the reason why Man City have done so well, the Stones and Diaz partnership. Obviously, they've got Rodri or Fernandinho in front with Edison behind in goal. But you look at the Liverpool when they won the title, the impact that Alisson and Van Dijk had with Fabinho in front. And at the moment, Man United, we only know that Maguire is definitely going to start that first league game if he isn't injured. And it's a big worry. So, yeah, I hope that I prefer De Gea in goal. I want De Gea to be the number one. But if it is Henderson, I think the team needs to know that as soon as possible. And we need to start getting the coaching going and get these players used to playing with each other as soon as possible.
Absolutely, mate. I just hope everything works out. I think everything will work out, quite hunky-dory. I just, it just baffles me why we have 5 senior goalkeepers. But I honestly of the opinion as well, Lee Grant and Juan Mata, eventually, if they're not already doing their coaching badges, I believe Juan Mata is anyway doing his coaching badges, but Lee Grant, I'm not 100% sure, but eventually I think both of these are going to be having coaching roles within Manchester United. So perhaps it's another way of, paying them a wage and also keep them on the books to play just in case they're needed. Because I'm sure as a coach they'll be earning that sort of, roughly around that sort of the money that they were earning anyway for being a top flight coach. So, but anyway, let's get on to the Euros anyway, because this is what this is all about. The Euro podcast anyway. So, England versus Ukraine. And we'll start off with England today. We'll focus on England as the biggie because it is a quarterfinal. It's against Ukraine, but it's in Rome. This is the first time in the whole competition that England are playing outside of their own country. They're not playing at Wembley. Will it make any difference at all to the way England approach the game, do you think, Tom?
Ultimately, you'd think no. And look, these professional players who every second week they're on a plane to play somewhere. So ultimately, you'd say no. However, they have been in this bubble for, I don't know, probably the best part of a month, 4 or 5 sort of weeks in terms of being at one camp and obviously only limited sort of travel to a game. You would get comfortable. It would almost be not like living in a hotel. They would have almost made that their little home sort of for the past month. So to suddenly sort of pack up bags and go away. And I think it's not so much the away travel. There's no hiding from the fact that having fans back at the stadium have helped. They've helped who's been the home team, but especially England. You look at that England-Germany game and the atmosphere. You don't know how that game pans out in front of no fans. And obviously there'll be fans, but in terms of that home support, it will be different for England. Now, they play away from home every second week for their club, so it shouldn't make a big difference. But ultimately, it is something new in this tournament and a different challenge for them, which they haven't faced yet.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's just worth noting because I know it's been a long time since England have played, outside their own country, especially in this competition. And Charlie, do you expect it to be a leveler at all for Ukraine? Ukraine have been used to travelling around so far and in this competition. England, not so much, although short flight across to Rome's not exactly across the other side of the world. But did you expect it to maybe suit Ukraine a little bit more that it's away from Wembley, away from the England fans? Will it sort of maybe be a hindrance to England, but they haven't got that fan base behind them? Although I think there will be some that have travelled, but they won't have them huge numbers that they have been throughout the tournament behind them. Do you think that's something that England may have to get used to, just not having a whole crowd behind them?
Yeah, definitely. I think it will make a difference. I think when you're used to playing in Wembley with that many fans behind you, they play 4 games now there, haven't they? All the group games and the game against Germany. I worry for tonight. I really do. I said I worry for the German game and I was wrong, but I really worry for tonight. This young England team, when they're the favourites, they struggle. When there's pressure on them, they struggle. It happened against Scotland. They were the big favourites on paper. I didn't think they'd win. I said it'd be a draw, but they're big favourites on paper, and they're big favourites again tonight. And this young team, when they're put under pressure, some of them crumble, which is understandable with the amount of media pressure. Of course, everybody, in England, there's so much pressure on these young players. It's unbelievable. But Gareth, we've heard some team news already. Jadon Sancho, I'm sure we'll touch on it in a minute. He's going to start with the looks of it, and Mason Mount's going to come back in. Obviously, that's a big call from Gareth because he hasn't tried Sancho before, and he's bringing him into a quarter-final game. Sancho hasn't started yet, so that's an interesting one. But yeah, I think it could be a tough night tonight for England. I've got a funny feeling Ukraine are going to score at the first goal. I don't know. I've got a very, very funny feeling England will start slow and Ukraine will score first, and that will really set it up for a good game. England. I think England are going to have to work very hard tonight to win this game. Ukraine. I think we've talked about it before with Stu. Your football. It doesn't matter who you are. If you don't turn up for that 95 minutes, you don't win the game. And Ukraine are a group of individuals that have shown a spine, they've shown backbone, they've shown fight. 2-0 down to the Netherlands, came back to 2-2. Obviously, they lost the game. Went to extra time with Sweden. I know Sweden got a red card, but they beat Sweden, who were no pushovers themselves. So, I'm a bit worried for tonight, I must say. I've got a funny feeling Ukraine will score the first goal, and that will cause England lots and lots of problems. And this sort of reliance on clean sheets at some point, I think it might come back to bite England. I think any team, obviously, of course, we've seen with Italy, if you can build on a strong defence, that's all good and well. But if you're not scoring many goals the other way, there is going to be that one game where the goals will dry up, as the game against Scotland, showed. But yeah, I'm a little bit worried for England tonight. I'm sure we'll talk about the actual players and the team in a minute. But in terms of Ukraine, what a chance it is for them. Incredible job that they've done to get to this stage in a group with Netherlands and Austria, obviously North Macedonia as well. But Netherlands and Austria, not an easy group at all for them, and they've done fantastically well. And they'll be fancying their chances, Ukraine, tonight. I really think they will. I think they'll come up against this England team. They've got to defend well. They might nick a goal. And I said, if they get that early goal, who knows what can happen? And if they do go through, they've got Denmark or the Czech Republic. And, Ukraine will give them a game. So, yeah, I definitely think not being at Wembley, I think it does give Ukraine a slight advantage for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think England have got to get used to that. I know people say, well, they're professional footballers. They're used to playing away from home weekly, for their clubs and and internationally when they go away with England. But I think it is a little bit of a leveler because all tournament they've been used to Wembley, the pitch at Wembley, the facilities at Wembley, obviously the fans, and I think it will be a bit of a leveler there, because I think you're going to get you could get plenty of locals that might also be on Ukraine's side as well that may go to the game. So I'm just hoping that England can manage that, which I'm sure Gareth Southgate and the players will have it all drilled into them, and we'll take it in their stride. Of course, on the England thing, you already said that Mason Mount will come back in. I can't remember what the stat was. There was something like 20 to 30 games. I think it was near the 30 mark where Gareth Southgate's not had the same starting 11. He's never had a settled starting 11. And also, I have read somewhere that Saka's a bit of a doubt as well, with a slight knock. Trippier troubled by a slight hamstring, which needs to be managed. So, in that case, Tom, we could see a couple of changes, as well as the Mason Mount one in there. Do you think that is another problem for England, where they've not really had a settled side for a number of games? It always used to be swapping and changing. If it's not one position, it's maybe two or three. But usually Gareth may just bring one out and then put one in. Do you think that's going further on deeper into this tournament? Is that going to come back and haunt Gareth Southgate, that he's not had a settled starting 11 week in? Well, I wouldn't say week in, week out, because obviously national football is a bit different, but a settled starting 11 throughout this tournament?
In essence, I'd say yes. However, as I say, the tournament's over in a week's time. In 2 weeks' time, it isn't week in, week out. It's not over 38 weeks. So he only has to do it 2 more times, and it's the right decision. Ultimately, if he goes out, we can sit here and say, well, it hasn't quite worked out. He should have sort of settled on that starting 11. But I think it's one of those that we have the same issue with Man United. So many fans will say, well, if we pick this player, that's good for the team, or if we pick that player, that's bad for the team. Ultimately, I don't think, you guys can have your opinion, I don't think there is a right answer for England. The right answer is obviously when you win, and if you get it wrong, it's the wrong answer. So if you lose, it's the wrong answer. But I look at the team and, okay, is it Walker or Trippier at right back? Half people say one, half people say the other. Do you play Grealish or Sancho? Do you play Mount or Foden? You're going to divide opinion, so we can only have the answer after the game. I'm not sure what the correct one is. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. It's just one of those that I honestly didn't know myself until I listened to it somewhere. Was it last night, the night before? On I think it was a program on BBC Sounds, but I should have really made a mental note of it or put it in my phone. But I can't remember exactly how many games. But Charlie, I'll come to you on this point. Will it hamper England if we do go deeper into the tournament? Because you think that a lot of nations are now playing a regular team. Yes, you might have one or two that coming in and out, but usually you can reel off the team off the top of your head. But with Southgate, there's always going to be a change or two somewhere. It's worked for him, as Tom said. It's worked for him so far, and he's only going to do that 2 more times, and then you're in a final of a competition. So, what do you make of that, mate?
I think you can look at it both ways. I think you can look at it as a positive that Gareth Southgate has so many options and so many different types of players, and he also has different formations that he can play. For example, he played the 5 at the back against Germany. He's going to go back to a 4, I expect, tonight. So can be a blessing in disguise, of course. But also, obviously, if you're chopping and changing players around, are the players going to be used to the combinations the players they're playing with? Well, I think, Maguire came in for Mings, having not played a game for 8 weeks, and he looked very, very settled. Having not played a game for so long, and Mings and Stones looked quite decent the first 2 games, and then Maguire came in, and Maguire looked pretty strong. So I think there's an example of a case where, for example, where Saka came in for, was it who played on that? Foden, wasn't it? Yeah, Foden played that on the right, didn't he? And he came in and looked fantastic there. So I actually think it could be a positive. Different types of players. He's got so many different types of players. Apparently Sancho's going to start tonight. So I expect it'll be Pickford, Walker, Stones, Maguire, Shaw, Phillips, Rice, and I expect he'll go Sterling, Mount, Sancho, and Kane. And obviously he's bringing Mount back in, and I think Grealish will be on the bench again to make an impact. And how many times you can leave your best player on the bench, I'm not so sure, because Jack Grealish, at some point, is going to come a time where he's going to come on and he's not going to make an impact because the game won't suit it. But yeah, he's got so many different options, but he has kept the spine the same. As we talked about the spine before, he's had Pickford in there in every game. He's had Stones there every game. Maguire obviously changed for Mings. That was the only change, but he's kept Phillips and Rice in for every game. He's kept Kane and Sterling in. So the main spine is kept the same. There's been a few changes, and it would be interesting to see, if we win this game, Denmark play a back five, I think. So if we were to play Denmark, would he go back to a back five and match Denmark up? Interesting if whether he does that. But yeah, he's got so many different options, and it's also a good thing. Of course, it can be a bad thing as well. But honestly, England have got so many options tonight. It can be a problem, of course, if you're mixing and matching all the time. But this is modern football. There's so many different ways to win now. There's so many different styles of play. It's just there's so many different things he can do. He's got so many different types of technical players, particularly in the forward areas. So, he's not really got any excuses, Gareth, to not win this game, especially, and to not get to the final. I think it would be a failure for England, really, with the draw that they've had. But yeah, we'll see what he goes with tonight. But yeah, he's just got that many options. I just think that the amount of players he's got, I don't think he can complain too much about. I think it's a blessing to be able to do this, to be able to bring players in and out depending on the opponent you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Tom, do Ukraine have any hope? I mean, tonight they're going to be missing. We're going to excuse my pronunciation of this. Alexander Zubkov. I hope I pronounced it right. My pronunciation of players, I do apologise, is absolutely woeful. But Yarmolenko is fit though for them, so that's the big news for them is that Yarmolenko is fit. Do you expect Ukraine to give England a decent game of football and maybe even cause an upset, or do we think that this is pretty much England's game to lose?
Look, as I said on the last stream, and Charlie just said it there, I expect Ukraine to score first. Now, that doesn't mean I expect Ukraine to go through, but you can just see that the way football narratives work, I can see Ukraine scoring quite early, and then it's up to England how they're going to react. And yes, if I'm betting man, England should be quite comfortable throughout the 90 minutes. However, this has happened, was it Iceland in the last Euros? So I know it's a different situation. It's a different England team. It's a different opponent. I fully understand that. But these results have happened before, and I was just discussing before we went on air, it's a 5 a.m. kickoff here in Sydney, and I was tossing and turning if I want to set the alarm or not. Just one of those things, if I wake up and I don't watch the game, I won't be shocked to see Ukraine, the headline say Ukraine beat England and England crash out of the Euros. While I'm not expecting that, if I see that result, I'm not going, oh my God, what's happened here? Like when Switzerland knocked France out, that was a shock. If Ukraine had beat England, I'd think, yeah, okay, it's a bit of a surprise, but I could see that coming. So it's an interesting one. Ultimately, I think England should do enough. They should have enough quality as the game goes on, because tournament football does add a intensity and a pressure. Charlie was talking about pressure before. Well, Ukraine have pressure as well. Whenever you see how many goals have come in sort of the latter stages in games, there's been late equalisers and late winners. And that comes from a fatigue. Pressure creates fatigue. So these players from whatever nation, whether it's Australia, Brazil, England, Iceland, Faroe Islands, whatever, when you're representing your country, you have a pressure, you have the weight of that nation. And what that pressure does, it creates a fatigue. You look at a boxer, they can sort of hit the pads for an hour before the fight, but they won't break a sweat. They go out there and that first 3 minutes in that round one, that feels like an hour. When the lights are on, that pressure creates a fatigue. And I think it's an interesting one with Jack Grealish, saying, well, a lot of people are asking for him to start, but I think as a manager in a knockout stage of a tournament, even with the starting 11, you have to prepare for extra time. You have to keep your options open in case the game goes late into the night and you have that extra 30 minutes. You need those options off the bench, and that is why, whether I would start him or not, that is why I can see Grealish starting on the bench from Southgate's point of view.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And on players starting or not starting, Charlie, we have to think about the yellow card situation, because the yellow cards that people have picked up so far, will not get rescinded to after this game today. So Harry Maguire, Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips are the 3 names that are on yellow cards, on bookings at the minute. Given that, would you risk playing in it? I mean, Harry Maguire, you've got to play him. He's your best centre-half alongside John Stones there. But Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, they're the 2 that worry me, because as your 2 holding midfield players, you know, that have to get stuck into challenges, those 2 run the risk of potentially missing England if they get another booking, potentially missing a semi-final. Would you make any changes at all with the yellow cards in mind, or would you just have to basically say, think Gareth Southgate's going to say no silly challenges, no stupid yellow cards, and try and manage our way through that game?
Yeah, I don't think he will rest any of those. I think that I don't think he's going to change Phillips and Rice unless he has to. Declan Rice's role in the last few games hasn't really been biting into challenges. He's the one that sits more and sort of protects that back 4 or 5, whereas Calvin Phillips is the one that's really been, like a little terrier going around people's ankles, snapping the ankles. He's done that job very, very well, Calvin Phillips, as well as also, of course, his attacking ability that he's shown. I wouldn't start Declan Rice tonight, not because he's on a yellow card, just because I don't think I'm not the biggest fan of Declan Rice. I think he's very overrated and overpriced. I think he does a decent job in midfield, but I don't think he does. I don't think he's worth 80 or 100 million pounds, as a lot of, obviously, as West Ham want and what his value seems to be. And I actually thought he had an average game against Germany at best. I actually, I may have been watching a different game to other people. Some people said he was fantastic. I didn't think so. I would start Jordan Henderson today alongside Phillips. I just think he offers more in midfield. I really do. I don't think he won't do it though. He'll play Rice and Phillips. But yeah, Gareth Southgate won't change any of that 3. He'll play those 3 tonight. You can't think about things like this. You've just got to get the job done. To be honest with you, I'm not so sure about sort of this Rice and Phillips partnership going forward, especially if we come up against a team like Italy in the final. I'm not so sure about them as a 2 in midfield. I worry. I think Ukraine play a 4-3-3 or something like that, or a 4-2-3-1. I think so. I haven't watched Ukraine much at all, so I really can't comment too much on their sort of style of play. I know they're a decent handy side. I know they're a tough team to beat. That's all I know. But yeah, you can't think about players with yellow cards. You just got to put Gareth Southgate. I'll put the team out that he thinks will win the game, and that will be Rice and Phillips, and Maguire will also play. But as I said before, Declan Rice is a funny one. I'm not his biggest fan, actually. I think I would start Jordan Henderson alongside Phillips tonight, just because I think that there were many times against Germany where it showed Phillips had the chance to pass it forwards. He was very tentative on the ball, and he chose to pass sideways or backwards. And there's nothing wrong with passing sideways at times to keep possession. There's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is that Ukraine are probably going to set up slightly deeper than Germany did, and we're going to need sort of penetrating balls fizzed into Harry Kane, fizzed into the forwards, quick, incisive passes, turn and hit, one-touch stuff. And Declan Rice will sort of do what Scott McTominay does for Man United when he's on the ball. He'll sort of labour around, look to the right, and I don't think that's the game for him tonight. So I would start Jordan Henderson. I just think he offers more going forward. But yeah, yellow cards, I don't think you can think too much about it. And to be honest with you, if Maguire, Rice or Phillips were to get suspended, England still have no excuses to beat, obviously I've said before, Denmark scare me for the semi-final, but still, he's got enough players to come in. Tyrone Mings has done exceptionally well. You've got Jude Bellingham, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, who can all come into midfield. So, yeah, I think he'll start those 3. But as I said before, if they get suspended, he's got no excuses still not to get through.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the Denmark games, we'll quickly just preview the Denmark game as well. I just want to get a quick score prediction from you on the England game for both of you. Tom, what do you think the score will be today for England, pal?
Look, I have to include a goal for Ukraine. As I said, I think they'll score first. A prediction side, I do think England will win, so let's say 3-1. I think it'll be a nervy first half, but you'd back them to win eventually. 3-1 England.
3-1 England. Charlie?
Oh, well, after my predictions yesterday, again, they went a bit sideways. I've not been doing very well on the predictions, but yeah, I think Ukraine will score first, but I think England will come back and win 2-1.
2-1, lovely. I don't think Ukraine are going to score. I'm going to go against you two. I think it'll be 2-0 England. Honestly, I think I don't know. I just can't see Ukraine penetrating England's back line, and England have not seen the goal yet. So I just can't see it happening. Watch Yarmolenko will come back and haunt me tomorrow, and you two will be going, I told you, Ben. Was the score first. But anyway, on to Czech Republic and Denmark. This one, I would love it if Czech Republic win, but I cannot see it, because the Danes scare me, and I mean really scare me. They're a proper, what I call a proper footballing side. That together to that squad is now. As what's happened to Christian Eriksen is now even stronger than what it was even before the tournament even started. I think this is the team to watch out for. I think Denmark could go all the way in this competition and surprise everybody and go on and win it like they did in '92. Tom, I'll come to you first on the Czech Republic and Denmark game. Could there be an upset there? Because obviously Denmark. Everybody's favourites for this game. But could you see the Czech Republic maybe pulling off a little bit of a surprise?
Yeah, well, you have to give Czech Republic the respect they deserve. They're at the same stage Denmark are at, and we're all sitting here saying how well Denmark have done. Well, they're at the same stage as Czech Republic. Ultimately, I do think Denmark will go through. One, I think they're probably a little bit better of a football team. But also, in just what you mentioned in regards to sort of, look, it was an unfortunate circumstances what has started this momentum with Christian Eriksen. Thank God he's okay. But I come back to that word momentum. And in sport, but especially in football, the hardest thing to stop is momentum. When you have it, anything can happen. And Denmark obviously have it at the moment. And as you say, you can see a scenario where they end up winning the tournament. I probably wouldn't go that far, but as a neutral, I would love it. And it would be worth a bet because, as I said, they are on a roll. And when you're on a roll in football, there is not much that can be done to stop you. So I think that could almost be pretty straightforward for Denmark and quite comfortable, almost the most comfortable of the quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Charlie, I'll come to you, mate, on this. The same question again. Can you? Sorry, Ukraine. I was going to say Ukraine. Can Czech Republic upset Denmark, or is that Denmark team spirit just too strong for someone like Czech Republic? Because Czech Republic have not set the tournament alight really, but whereas the Danes have really put their name out in this tournament so far. How do you see it going, pal?
Well, Denmark, I've said before, I agree with Tom and obviously Ben as well. We talked about it. They really do scare me, Denmark. They just seem they're everybody's second team at the moment, it seems, and they've got everybody behind them. The amount of mental strength that they've accumulated from what happened is just fantastic. And yeah, the Czech Republic are one of those teams that they've got 2 or 3 or 4, really solid players, and they're a solid unit. They've got Patrick Schick up front who can score goals. They've got Soufal and Souček, obviously the West Ham lads as well, that are obviously very, very solid players, and they're good on set pieces. That they could cause Denmark some problems. But, Denmark have scored 4 goals in the last 2 games against Russia and Wales, who, are not, terrible sides themselves. And Denmark have got actually some real technical players with Damsgaard. I think he plays in the Italian league. He's been very good. And they had Poulsen injured for the Wales game, and they just brought in Dolberg, and he just scored 2 goals. So everything seems to be going right for them at the moment. Denmark, their striker gets injured. They bring another one in, and he gets 2 goals. So even the lads that have been on the bench, they're ready to make an impact. The ones that haven't been involved, they're a fantastic unit. They've got, I think, Myler, Yakim Myler. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I think their left wing back, he's been one of the players of the tournament. But yeah, I think Denmark will win it. But to be honest with you, it will not surprise me if the Czech Republic win, because this tournament has been so unpredictable. And we could be talking about a Czech Republic-Ukraine semi-final, which if you would have said that to me before the tournament started, I would have laughed at you. So yeah, to be honest with you, I'm probably not going to watch too much of the 5 o'clock game, just because I want to save my energy for the England game, to be honest. I might catch the second half, but yeah, Denmark do scare me. I think if Denmark were to win, if England were to play Denmark in the semi-final, I'd be very, very worried for that game, to be honest with you. And I think even if they were to play Italy, I think Denmark would give them a real tough game. So yeah, I think Denmark will win, but it's just this Euros has just been so unpredictable. There's just teams not turning up that you would expect to. You've got some underdogs who are just like the Ukraine, like Denmark themselves, like Switzerland, who just seem to really be good units. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But this football is just so unpredictable. That's why we love it. But yeah, Czech Republic have got players that can cause some problems, but I think Denmark will just edge it.
Absolutely. Tom, as a neutral, mate, would you rather see England versus Denmark or England versus Czech Republic, or even Ukraine versus Czech Republic? What game really excites you there? Because to be fair, like, anything can happen in football, but surely you want to see the best playing the best, and for England to go all the way, you want them to beat the best. You want them to play the likes of Denmark or Italy. What gets your juices flowing? Is it the bigger games, or would you, as a football neutral, would you mind seeing a Ukraine Czech Republic semi-final?
Look, there is room for a good story. Everyone loves that underdog story, especially in a tournament. But I think when you do get to this stage, you want the big nations. Like, you look at the other side, that Italy versus Spain semi-final now. Italy have been very good, but while Spain maybe aren't sort of the force that they are, it's still Italy v Spain in a semi-final of European competition. It's massive. Well, it will be when kickoff comes around. And obviously you're not going to get that on the other side of the draw, but yeah, you could potentially get a great story with England and Denmark. Whoever England play is obviously going to be huge. The build-up to that, they could play anyone. It would be huge the way the media will treat it, and rightly so. I think it'll just add that extra 5% if it is Denmark, because they do have a great story. There's a few players who obviously play in the Premiership. You've got the connection to Christian Eriksen. And obviously, as Charlie has been saying, Denmark are a scary opposition for a magnitude of reasons. And that is why, from a football point of view and an excitement point of view, one, I think it will happen, but also I probably do want it to happen, is England v Denmark in the semi-final.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope that both England and Denmark get there, because honestly, I reckon it'll be the game of the tournament. And let's not talk about the final. I reckon England and Denmark could be an absolute banger of a game. I think that's what the kids use these days. The word banger. I don't know. I'm trying to keep it cool with them. But Charlie, finally on Denmark, mate. Can you see them going on and winning this Euros? Because they did it in '92 when nobody fancied them. What sets them apart? Because I look at Denmark, I look at England, and I think both teams are quite similar, really, in their resilience and in the way they play the game, and the togetherness of the squad. Because this is probably the most together England team that I think has been since Euro '96, arguably maybe France '98. So, do you think Denmark go all the way, or are we still firmly camp England?
Yeah, I can't rule anybody out, Bernard. Even Spain against Italy, you could say that to me. What do you think for that game? Italy by far a more sort of, what's the word, ruthless, let's say, a more ruthless team. But to be honest with you, I'm not even going to say that they'll beat Spain easily, because it'll probably come back to bite me the way this Euros has been going. I think Denmark, the game that they've got today, obviously they've beaten a Wales team 4-0. A little bit unfair maybe on Wales. They were by far the better team, Denmark, but 4-0 was maybe a little bit harsh on them. But Denmark are sort of, before going into the Euros, I thought they were this sort of solid unit that didn't score many goals, and all of a sudden they've scored 8 goals in the last 2 games. So, if the Czech Republic don't turn up tonight and don't defend well, they're going to be in big trouble. And the same with England. I mean, if England keep a clean sheet tonight and get through and then play Denmark in the semi-final, it's going to be a hell of a job to keep that Denmark team out again and keep the clean sheet run going because of how they're doing. Denmark, of course, they've got a chance of getting to the final. Of course, they've got a chance of winning the Euros. This Euros has been that strange and that unbelievable that you just cannot 100% or even 80 or 90% say that team's going to win or that team's going to go out. Denmark, have they got enough to win it? In terms of the quality of players they've got, perhaps not. But as we saw yesterday, Switzerland, you would say, haven't got enough to beat Spain, and they took them to penalties. And when you go to penalties, I've said it before, there's very little in it. It's almost a sort of 50-50 sort of chance of winning or losing. It's very, very tight. Of course, the more technical players maybe have got more advantage, but if you can't hit the ball from the penalty spot into a goal, then if you can't take a penalty properly, as we saw yesterday with the quality of the pens was awful, then you shouldn't be at this level. I know the pressure and of the occasion, of course, it's huge, but why footballers don't just smash the ball, pick their side and just hit it as hard as they can? I don't know why they try and do this placement rubbish. But anyway, Denmark, they've got a great chance. If they get to the final, it's 90 minutes against Italy or Spain, isn't it? Of course they've got a chance. The final could even be somebody like Spain against Ukraine yet. We just don't know. I expect it's going to be Italy, as we said there, Italy, Denmark, or Italy, England, I would expect. But this is why we love football. It's so unpredictable. But yeah, Denmark, of course, they've got a chance. Everybody's got a chance in this tournament now. I can't rule anybody out. You maybe rule Ukraine out of winning the whole tournament. So I think that's probably quite realistic. But all the other teams, of course, they've got a chance. But yeah, if England were to play Denmark, I worry. I would worry a lot for that game.
Ugly Bear's got early. He said Italy versus Denmark final. So he's been really, really impressed with the Italians and Danish so far. You mentioned the penalties there, Charlie. I'll stick with you for a minute. The Spain-Switzerland game, the penalties were absolutely diabolical, some of them. Absolutely shocking. Like you said, our professional footballers don't just get it down on the spot and smash it into either bottom corners. Sometimes, it's beyond me. But then again, it's the pressure of penalty shootouts, I suppose. England have always suffered greatly in the penalty shootout, the pressure of penalty shootout situations. What did you make of the game yesterday, first and foremost, though, Switzerland, Spain? It was pretty much even Stevens, really, I thought. I don't think Spain were really that impressive, but, at the same time, Switzerland, I think they were starting to look leggy, or it could be just my eyes. What did you make of the game yesterday?
Yeah, I think Spain at times are a joy to watch. At times they're a joy to watch. They play some very good football. Pedri is a fantastic talent. Jordi Alba, obviously his shot that was deflected that got the goal in. They've got some good players. They haven't got a world class player in their team though. That is. They haven't got one. They haven't got a world class player. They've got a lot of sort of 11 decent, good players. They play some good stuff at times. And then I watched the extra time. It was a bit like, and then we got to penalties and, Switzerland just won a penalty shootout against France. They scored all 5 penalties and they only got 1 penalty in yesterday. It's just that's how football can change. But yeah, Spain shouldn't have to rely on penalties to beat Switzerland with the players that they've got. Spain got, fortunate. They did get fortunate. But throughout the tournament, Spain, they've created that many chances and they just haven't put the ball in the back of the net as much as they should. I know they put 5 past Slovakia and Croatia, but in the first 2 games, they could have easily scored 3 or 4 in those. So, I thought it was quite a poor game actually. I think Switzerland missed Granit Xhaka in midfield, to get on the ball. I know what a lot of people, I think we talked about this yesterday, a lot of people give him stick when he's at Arsenal, when he plays for Arsenal. But that sort of maybe pressure that he gets when he plays for Arsenal, maybe not so much, similar to the situation with Dan James when he plays for Wales compared to Man United. He seems to perform better as well. So yeah, Switzerland, Spain, it was a bit of one of those games. I wasn't really looking forward to it that much because I think Spain are quite frustrating to watch at times. There's not many players that get you off your seat with Spain. It's more of the sort of the system and the one-touch passing, the triangles that they create. That's the good part of Spain's play, rather than sort of one or two unbelievable individual players. But yeah, the penalties were awful. The worst penalties I've seen for a long time. It was a lot different to the Man United Villarreal shootout, which was, I know, very painful in the end. But the penalties were incredible in that game, really. But yeah, the penalties were awful. But who cares if you're a Spain supporter, you're through. And yeah, Switzerland, all credit to them, particularly Jan Sommer in goal. Fantastic. He's been all tournaments, and they overachieved, didn't they, Switzerland, to get to the quarterfinal, really. So fair play to them.
I'm glad you mentioned Jan Sommer there, Charlie, because I think he's a really decent goalkeeper, and he's always been a decent penalty shot stopper, I think he's one of the most overlooked goalkeepers in world football. I really do think he's a decent keeper. I don't know, Tom, if you got to watch any of the Spain game, Spain-Switzerland game. If you did, what did you make of it, mate?
No, well, I saw the penalties. I didn't see the 90 minutes, but I can only imagine, and Charlie sort of mentioned there, I think not only the game against Switzerland, but just in general the way Spain play. It is very frustrating for a lot of people, and there is a desire, well, they don't have a true striker. They don't have that number. Well, they do, but he's obviously Morata and players like that. They're not sort of in great form in terms of goal scoring. But in terms of the way they play, look, I love it. A lot of people find it frustrating, but I think when I used to play football, that technical aspect of it, of keeping the ball away from the opposition, it is so difficult, and I have to respect how technically gifted the Spanish players are. They're unbelievable the way they do it. Now, ultimately, it could cost them, in terms of what I was saying about that striker, they might not be, as Charlie said, as ruthless as other teams in the competition, which could cost them. But I do love the way they play. In terms of, I can't see them getting past Italy. I think it's almost Italy's tournament. They started the tournament on the right foot, and they've just ran through everyone. And you could almost see, if they get the towels up against Spain, they'll continue that form. But Spain, again, we have so many criticisms of the way they play, and especially their sort of goal scoring sort of credentials. However, they do score a lot of goals, maybe a little bit sort of padded in terms of that last group game, etc. But as I said, for the other teams in the competition, they're in that stage as well. Actually, well, they're even further in the semi-final stage now. So, yeah, look, I would be back in Italy to get past them, but you can't knock them. They've done well to get here, especially, as I said, without that sort of world-class striker, which you'd assume that teams need to win a tournament.
Absolutely. But I'll stick with yourself there, Tom, for a minute as well, because Italy did beat the number one ranked team in the whole world, Belgium, yesterday. Did that come as a surprise to you, or because the way they've been playing in this tournament, Italy, and I think everybody has fancied Italy, I think, since the start of the tournament, this is the way they started it. Was it a bit of a shock, or was it not so much of a shock, given the way the Italians have taken to this tournament? Because, as you said, without a proper striker as well, without a proper recognised out-and-out goal scorer, the Italians are getting the job done. And yes, they conceded again yesterday. I think it was a bit of a soft penalty in my point of view, but they've only conceded 2 goals this tournament as well. So they're very, very strong at the back, with Bonucci and with Chiellini especially, and they're about as old as my granddad's old well-worn Wellington boots. So what do you make of the Italians?
Well, in regards to that result, Italy v Belgium, it was a 50-50 game. Like I said, if I'm going to wake up and see Ukraine beat England, I won't be shocked. Whatever the result between Belgium and Italy was going to be, 50-50, it wasn't a surprise. As you said, Belgium, they were ranked number one. I assume they still are number one in the world. They do have unbelievable talent. They've almost this golden generation, which you ultimately think now, well, this is a big chance for them to finally win something. Whether they've got another tournament together, I'm not quite sure. But as I said, and I've used the word before on this podcast, that momentum, and Italy have it. And while Italy do have the momentum, they've also got the other tools. They've got that defensive base. They've got a good manager in Mancini. I think, did Locatelli pick up an injury against Belgium? Looks like he's out of the tournament now. So how they respond to that, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it's hard to knock Italy at the moment. It does look like it's their tournament. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win it, but they are the story so far for me.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It's I going into tournament, I would never have picked Italy to get this far. You know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I thought the Italians, yeah, they were going all these games unbeaten, but I thought, nah, that's not the Italian side that I'm used to. You know, when you're used to people like Pippo Inzaghi, Del Piero, used to strikers that, you know, roll off the tongue and get them the goals. Christian Vieri was another one from back in the day. So there's been really quite a bit of a surprise for me that Italy have gone far in this tournament. But Charlie, the job that Roberto Mancini has done is second to none with that Italian squad. There's before he took charge, the Italian national side was down the doldrums. You know, it was an absolute mess, and he's come in there, took charge, and arguably they've been the team of the tournament so far. What have you made of the job that Roberto Mancini's done for the Italians so far?
Yeah, you're right, but I don't think it's even arguably the team of the tournament. I think it's by quite a way team of the tournament. You know, there's so many things to say about them. I mean, you could talk about Italy all day. The technical players, the fantastic manager, the coaching, the system, the grit, the determination, the fight, the willingness to put your body on the line, the talent, the finishing, the ruthlessness. Every single word comes to mind of admiration for Italy. Honestly, it's incredible. How anyone's going to stop them, I'm not so sure. How can you beat Italy? I think Belgium showed slightly gave us a little bit of a clue on how you can hurt them. Obviously, they won it wasn't a penalty. No way a penalty with the Belgian penalty. I think Doku went down way too easily, but that showed how you can cause Italy problems with pace. You know, they haven't come up against teams. If you look in their group, they played Wales, and obviously they played their second string side, and Wales had a red card, and Wales were already pretty much through. They played Switzerland and Turkey, then they played Austria, and Belgium was the first team really that they came up against with a bit of pace up front, and they won a penalty from it with Doku's quick. You know, he quickly turned, and they won a penalty from it. Although I don't think it was. And that is, I think that's one of the only ways you can hurt them, with pacing behind. You know, Chiellini and Bonucci are wonderful defenders, unbelievable. Just the way they act when they block something, they celebrate as if they scored a goal. That is the equivalent of scoring a goal for them. It's just the art of defending something that's gone out of the game recently, and it's just wonderful to see it. But yeah, if England do come up against Italy, they will cause them problems. Spain, I don't think Spain will cause them too many problems with in pacing behind, because I don't think they have a lot of pace. But I think if England do come up against them, they will. I think that's one of the only ways you can sort of cause this Italy team problems, because you can't pass them off the park with Jorginho, Barella and Verratti. You know, you can't really high press them because they'll just pass it round you. Lumping a big ball up to your striker, Chiellini and Bonucci will win the headers. So I think one of the only ways of doing it is running the channels, counter-attacking in behind. And Spinazzola, obviously, has been the player of the tournament, really. He's out now for the rest of the tournament. I think he's got broken a tendon or something, or a ligament. So he's going to be out. So Emerson will come in from Chelsea. Obviously, he's not as good as Spinazzola, so that's a little bit of a weakness. So they're going to have to work that out. But yeah, Italy, it's going to take something special to beat them. I really think it is. But as I said before, pace in behind is what you have to go for. And I think if England were to come up against Italy, the runs that Sterling makes in behind could be a big problem for Italy. And obviously Luke Shaw as well on that left-hand side with Grealish. If Grealish plays at 10, Sterling on the left and Luke Shaw at left back, I think that could cause Italy problems. But, England have got a couple of games to play before that and they need to win those games. But Italy have just been phenomenal. I think they've already conceded like 8 goals or something in the last 30-odd games. It's just incredible. Just unbelievable the job he's done. And there's a lot of good football teams around with good players in it. For example, Man United, we've got some good players in our team. Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, Pogba, etc. But the system that they set up with is just incredible. The way they play, just relentless, so ruthless. They've got a goal scorer in Immobile. They've got Belotti on the bench as well, who's equally as good, who can come on and score goals. They just the experience they've got as well. When they need to waste time, they'll do it. As it showed last night, they were just fantastic at running the clock down. So it's going to take something special to beat Italy, I think. I'm not sure if anybody can beat them. I actually tweeted, I think I mentioned yesterday, Ben, about the dark horse thing.
Yeah.
And I did find that tweet. I did find it before the tournament started. I said Italy might be dark horses. And I think it looks like they are going to go, well, obviously to the business end. They're in the semi-final now. So, yeah, Italy have been wonderful. By far the most impressive team in this tournament. Nobody has been near them at all. Even Belgium yesterday, they lost by 1 goal, but Italy were just quite comfortable, I thought. I know Belgium had chances, but Italy, they're just so good. They're just so good. It's as simple as that. There's so many different types of players. They've got a mix of everything. So many technical players, and if one player's out, they've got a player who can come in that can do maybe not as good as a job, but nearly as good as a job. Italy, fantastic, and I expect them to win the Euros now.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And listen, I made a fool of myself yesterday by saying I couldn't see Hazard or Kevin De Bruyne even in the team yesterday, and lo and behold, Kevin De Bruyne is in the starting lineup. So that's me making a fool of myself again, just like that. That 200 to 1 bet, 5 each way on Scotland to win Euro 2020. What do I know? Football, isn't it? Tom, just to finish off on the Belgium thing, we haven't mentioned Belgium too much. We have obviously applauded Italy, quite rightly so. But what have you made of Romelu Lukaku's tournament? Because he scored again last night. He's had a great season for Inter previously. Can you see him maybe be on the move in the summer? Because there's a lot of gossip and rumours going around that he could maybe even come back to the Premier League in the summer. Would you be surprised to see him back in the Premier League?
No, I wouldn't be surprised if he does return to Chelsea. That's something I'd say, yeah, I can see that. Whether Chelsea splash that type of money, because he will cost a lot of money. He hasn't been into that long, so I assume he's still on a sort of bit of a hefty contract. I think his future may depend on what happens with Haaland. If Haaland moves, if that's going to change anything in regards to the sort of striker merry-go-round across Europe. In regards to his tournament, I think it's a Lukaku tournament. He has everything there. You think he's on the verge. Look, some people say he's world-class or a world-class striker, maybe not a player. That's up for debate. But I think it's almost one of those ones where he's so close to being absolutely unplayable and perfect. But then some aspects of his game, you think, oh, hang on, that's why Solskjaer got rid of him. That's why he can't be sort of in that top bracket of strikers. But in terms of very good, obviously a great season in Italy, a good tournament. Ultimately for Belgium, maybe not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And Charlie, I'll come to you to finish off on Belgium and Lukaku. What have you made of Romelu Lukaku? Could you see him maybe go back, as Tom says, to Chelsea or going back to the Premier League? Or do you think he may be going like maybe Spain, for example? I think I've heard rumours of Real Madrid. Whether that's is doable or not, I don't know. But what have you made of Romelu Lukaku over this past calendar year?
Yeah, I totally agree with Tom and Jonathan in the comments as well. As just put it there. Lukaku, no one doubts that Lukaku will get you goals. No one doubts that Lukaku will be an important player in your team, will score a load of goals. He'll score you, at the minimum 15, 20, 25 goals a season. But in terms of a player and what he offers other than his goals, at Man United, I don't think he quite showed that. He didn't use his strength enough. Even on things like set pieces, I don't think he was enough of a threat. You think how much of a threat he could be on set pieces. And yeah, he's a very good striker, but as a footballer, I don't think he's the best, most talented footballer. And this is the thing, that a lot of people get mixed up with nowadays in football. The difference between, for example, a good goal scorer, a good creative player, but not actually a fantastic footballer in terms of the baller sort of aspect of it. And this is what a lot of people, I think, get mixed up with. And I think, a lot of Man United fans in particular, with players like Rashford and Bruno, I think people get a little bit mixed up with the difference between a good goal scorer, a good assist maker, compared to actually a very good footballer in terms of the football IQ and the actual knowledge and decision making. But yeah, Romelu Lukaku, no one doubts he scores goals. Any team, a lot of teams in Europe would take him. I'd imagine he costs quite a lot of money. I'm not sure whether the teams will be willing to pay that this summer. Certainly talking about the sort of Chelsea team, I'm not quite sure he'd fit in too well at Chelsea in terms of the system that they play. I know Chelsea sort of don't have that proper sort of number 9, but not many teams, a lot of teams don't play with a proper number 9 anymore. You look at Firmino for Liverpool, Man City with the false 9, Man United, obviously before Cavani came in, sort of Martial isn't sort of that sort of proper number 9. He's more of a false 9, sort of a link-up player. So yeah, Romelu Lukaku, great striker. He's got a lot of weaknesses though. Just in that sort of big moments, he doesn't seem to quite get there. He missed his header yesterday when the ball came into the box, and he missed that chance at the back post. Just doesn't quite. He hasn't quite sort of this level. He hasn't quite ever got to that level, that sort of world class level. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody put in a bid for him. But I just think you'd have to pay, I imagine, 60, 70 million for him. I would imagine. I'm not fully sure on that, but whether teams will want to pay that this summer, I'm not so sure.
Absolutely. And to end the show, because I did ask earlier on for England's score predictions, I would ask you for your Denmark, Czech Republic score predictions. I forgot to ask, so I'm going to end the show by asking that. Tom, Denmark, Czech Republic, which way do we see this going, mate? Score prediction-wise.
Yeah, as I said, I think it would probably be the most comfortable quarter-final out of the lot. And look to say, I'm not going to say Denmark will win 4-0, but I think if I'm going to say comfortable, I'd say 2-0 to Denmark. To
Denmark and Charlie?
I'll go for 3-0 to Denmark.
3-0 Denmark. I'm with Tom. I'm going to go 2-0 to Denmark. I do think the Czechs will give them a bit of a game. Especially because it is a quarter final. But I just can't see anyone but Denmark winning that one. I'm going to wrap it up there. We have gone over an hour. My thanks to Tom from Sydney. He can go get himself some shut eyes soon and maybe get up for the England game at 5 a.m. And my thanks to Charlie once again. Thank you, boys, for joining me today. And thank you for everybody in the comments. Ugly Bear, Jonathan Ball, especially you two. Thank you for the great comments as always. Jonathan Ball just saying about Denmark seems to have the momentum. Absolutely, mate. And Italy suits Romelu Lukaku's slower. The game's a lot slower there, which, yeah. This is true. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to say goodbye, and then we shall see you in the next one. And also, don't be putting any silly bets on like I do, because it's just make yourself look a muck. 200 to 1 Scotland, and I make myself look a fool. But yeah, anyway, have a good rest of the afternoon and rest of your night, Tom, and we shall see you in the next one.
Cheers.